I recently moderated a public transit forum on one of Northwest Indiana's toughest, most long-standing issues, access to public transit. Forum was part of a settlement and a lawsuit between the disability rights group Everybody Counts and the Northwestern Indiana Regional Planning Commission. We have both sides here in the studio. Ty Warner is Executive Director of NIRPC, and Teresa Torres is Executive Director of Everybody Counts. Welcome to both of you.
Thanks, Steve. And thanks again for what you did for the meetings. We really
Certainly.
appreciated it.
So this week I gave a report on that forum that happened back in October to the NIRPC Board of Directors, basically the mayors, the town council members, commissioners for the 3 counties up here. It was kind of out of my comfort zone, but I got a pretty warm reception. But with so much support, why do you think we've seen bus service actually dwindling in Northwest Indiana over the last couple of years? You think with that level of support, you'd see, expansion all around us?
There's a huge funding challenge, and I think part of what you helped to contribute to get the word out is that there's a great need out there, and that there is a drive to need to get more connected systems, expand systems, and yet the funding is the challenge, and trying to find that local funding to be able to obtain the federal portion is what's continually be the challenge. So until that funding source is identified, we really need to be creative in trying to figure out how to meet that.
See, and I think we're oftentimes putting the cart before the horse. We recognize you need the funding. However, it's our position that if the leadership is not ensuring that the process is appropriate by which to plan that system, by which to implement that system, the funding's not going to be there. We've already spent a small fortune on creating the RBA, and many people are saying, well, it wasn't successful because there wasn't the money. What we say is that there wasn't the money because it wasn't successful enough for people to endorse it, to support it. So it's kind of backwards.
Well, and there is and talking to people back in October, there is this patchwork of system there, of a system here. Many people use this system. There's on-demand buses in many parts of the county. There's fixed route service still in Gary and East Chicago. What would an ideal system look like for Lake County?
One that's interconnected, for one thing. One that gets people to where they actually need and want to go. One that is consistent. One that is reliable. One that that people can participate in without needing to go through the machinations that they currently do to be able to secure that ride.
I would add to that one that is fully accessible. What we have now is, NIRPC having subsidized the purchase of vehicles that are not accessible. And so we're getting calls from people whereby the vehicles are showing up to pick them up, but they're not accessible vehicles. So all of those components that Ty referenced, but they need to be not only fully accessible, but operating in compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act. That's what led to the litigation in the first place, that concern.
I gave this report about what happened back in October, and after I was done, Hammond Mayor Tom McDermott made a motion to create a subcommittee to look at a transit system, I guess, for all of Lake County. Mayor Karen Freeman Wilson, she concurred with Mayor McDermott. What do you think we're going to see out of that?
Well, I hope we're going to see some commitment to be able to try to find and identify, again, this fundamental problem. I think what you were able to communicate, what the people that came to that meeting were able to communicate in that context was communicated very loudly at the commission meeting, and I think we're going to see the commissioners take a good hard look at trying to supplement all the work that's already going on in Northwestern Indiana with trying to solve this piece as well.
I'd like to see the commissioners, as they tackle that task, ensure that they are getting all of the people to the table that need to be there. We think that's what has been lacking heretofore. If you approach the same problem the same way with the same people, you're going to be potentially doomed to fail. And so we want the folks to start taking a different look, which is why we've been raising concerns about the methodology by which they engage the public. Has to have everyone that has a real stake. The stakeholders are more than just the people that are funding it. It's the people whose lives are dependent, and they have to be involved in the dialogue.
You want more public input on this?
Yes, a more sincere effort to engage the public, not just put it on paper, but to actually do it.
So what do you say to that person who's in Crown Point, they have 2 cars in the garage, they don't think they're going to take a bus at any time in the near future? Why should they be interested in funding a bus system for Northwest Indiana?
Well, firstly, it's certainly cost effective. What people don't realize is that there are subsystems. For example, people are using Medicaid providers, private providers, so that Medicaid is paying $80 a trip for your neighbor to get to the doctor, whereby if there was a bus system. So it's cost effective for the whole community. And everyone has a member in their family that would benefit. And quite frankly, as long as we're an aging population, more and more people would benefit. I think the key is, it's kind of like if you've never experienced it, and people in Crown Point, for the most part, really haven't to any great extent. And so they don't really know what we're talking about as far as how they or their families or neighbors might benefit. One of the things we'd like to do is see some pilot projects, kind of like what the Act Now Coalition did in terms of getting people that have perhaps never ridden a bus out to the Lake County Fair. We would like to see some of those kind of demonstration projects so that the people in the communities that are unclear about what the potential is would have a better understanding.
I think that's it. The people just simply, they don't use buses, so they're not used to using the system.
Right. If they're not familiar with using the bus, that's one thing. But they have to look at the much bigger picture. And I think that behooves all of us in Northwestern Indiana to look at that bigger picture. It's that transit is important for the folks who can't drive, who need that opportunity to be able to get where they want to go. But more than that, it's an economic development issue. We have the potential to be an area where we can attract not only the older generation that cannot drive or will come to the point where they have difficulty driving, but also a younger generation that doesn't want to own a car, that doesn't want to have that burden. So we have workforce issues, we have much larger issues that really would benefit everyone by having a better transit system.
Unfortunately, that's where we're going to have to leave it. Ty Warner, Executive Director of NIRPC, Teresa Torres, Executive Director of Everybody Counts. And again, I really enjoyed moderating that forum. I thought it was great.
Great job.
We
Great job.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.